Constitution. And what I want to talk to you about tonight, of course, is Article 5 of the Constitution. On September 17th, all of our brothers and sisters were called to occupy Wall Street, and they did, in a big way. They showed up there. But I want to remember another 17th, September the 17th, in 1787. That's when the founding framers finalized the Constitution. Now, the Constitution being finished on that date, and the date September the 17th for Occupy Wall Street, I think is synchronicity. Those two dates are showing us a way forward by looking back at what we've already done. We've built on this fabric. You know, lots of people didn't have rights when this country started. People of color, women, even children didn't have the rights we have now. They had to fight for those rights. But they didn't fight with guns. They fought on podiums. They fought with debates. They fought with pamphlets. They went out and they got the word to the people. These are your rights, and these are how you exercise them. And people today no longer know what the Constitution says. How many people here knew what Article 5 was before I brought it up? It's not a common thing. The Constitution may not be the perfect document, but this is where it shows its brilliance and the great understanding the men had who drafted it, and knowing they couldn't foresee the future. They didn't know what was coming, and they couldn't write a document that was going to be applicable forever. So they added the amendment process. They also knew such a small number of people running Congress and the Senate, which is 485 people total, could easily be subverted. And this is a way for us to go around a corrupt government. Literally go around them. On the application of the legislatures of 2/3 of the states, the Congress must call a constitutional convention. This is not a thing where they get a choice in it. The president can't do anything about it either. And I think this convention should be the Occupy movement's goal, especially Occupy Utica, that we should move towards this constitutional convention. Patrick Henry is very famous for saying, "Give me liberty or give me death." But very few people remember him saying the Constitution is not an instrument for the government to restrain the people. It's an instrument for the people to restrain the government, lest it come to dominate our lives and interests. So how the proposal would work is much more laid out in the pamphlets, but it would basically be electing 2 delegates from each congressional district and then sending those delegates to a central place, say Philadelphia, in order to hash this out. The very Constitution and the Bill of Rights were the exact same way. It was Federalist and Anti-Federalist. They fought it out, they compromised, then came the Constitution, and then came the Bill of Rights. The Constitution was developed this very way, and many people even say that our Constitution is based on the Iroquois Nation, which was in this very valley. The Mohawk natives in this very valley were part of the Iroquois Nation. That Constitution of the very same basic model served them for a long time very well. It served us for a long time very well until it got subverted. So it's time that we teach people their rights and how to non-violently take back their own government in the way that was prescribed to us in the very document that we're defending. So this will be tabled, and I want people to debate about it. If there's anyone that has any questions or wants to rebut why this is a bad idea or anything like that, then over the next week or so, especially here tonight, then we can do that, and we can talk about it and hash it out and see if that's a goal that we can all get behind. It encompasses everybody. Anybody can elect a delegate. And so anybody have any questions?
Do we know if any other occupies have proposed this at all?
About 37 of them.
Okay.
So there are small working groups within almost all of the major Occupy groups, including Wall Street, that are working towards this. So it's something we could sell, I think.
Okay.
Anyone else?
That was one of my first big questions, because that would have been, the thing would have been trying to share it, and it's kind of hard to share things between occupies and one of my initial fears about it was, had to do more with pitch than my actual concerns, was that most of the states are red. When you get to convention, my idea was that, okay, well, 3/4 of the states are red states. The only place that are blue states are freaking New England and California. But it doesn't quite work that way, because you're doing it by congressional district, and that's about 50-50. The only things that I see that we could come out from a constitutional convention with, that everyone could agree on, would be things that appeal to both the left and right, which would be an end to corporate personhood, an end to money in politics, essentially. And so, yeah, like, hesitant at first, and the more I looked into it, the more it seemed like a good idea, something concrete we could do, because none of the shit they bring up at Wall Street our Congress people can't even do it. No one can do it. If everybody that was currently in power wanted to, they couldn't do it. They couldn't take money out of politics. But we can do it by going around the federal government and making a constitutional convention through the process that exists for us to do it. It's like freaking genius. But
And let me bring up the fact that it's never been tried with electing people and not professional politicians, not state legislators. It's never been tried without going through the state legislators or the Congress. So this would literally be something new that hasn't happened since the Constitution was written. So if you keep doing the same things over and over and expect to get a different result, Albert Einstein said you're crazy. So we need to do something new. This is something new. You had your hand up, Sam?
Yeah, I'd like to bring something up. I realized when I said that we should mobilize, and I just kind of came up with this, that would be a bad idea, because then we would be nothing but spreading propaganda. I mean, sure, it's truth, but it's still propaganda. It's still, come listen to what we have to say, come join us. We should let people just find us. I mean, that's how I got here, is I found you guys, and now I'm like a fixture, you know? Because that's the ideas I had. I came here, realized that we all have different ideas, and that it's, you know, it's unification through individual. And I was like, yes, this is what's been needed for so long. And I do love this. I don't know how much we should, like this, maybe we should pass out. But when it comes to our movement specifically, we should keep it to people who are themselves interested and would like to come here and see it.
And then you're excluding it. You know, we're not even 1% of Utica here. We need to get other people. We need to show them we have a solid thing to get behind here. This is a legal way through the Constitution, completely nonviolent. You know, the pen is mightier than the sword.
most of us can't even get our best friends down here.
Yeah.
Let alone appeal to the people at the bus stop. So.
Sorry, but is it all just about dedication? Do you think that the majority of people are going to actually understand a lot of this stuff? You know, because it seems to me that it's very highbrow, and if you want Joe Public to bear on something like this, is there any way that you can, like, I don't know, put it more simplistically, if you know what I mean? Because there's so many people out there that have no idea about different congressional things and, you know, the different channels of government that you've got to work and what's legal and illegal, and, you know, I mean, if there's some way that you can put it in a very basic form, especially on the website, because I think that's what would get a lot more people here through that kind of medium, you know what I mean?
Right.
So if there was something that you could come up with that was a lot more fundamental, if you like, a lot more basic as to what you wanted to say, you know what I mean?
The simple way to put it would be, it is A, constitutional process, you don't have to explain like the technical details, and B, a goal, which would be being ending corporate personhood or money out of politics, which like has very, very mass appeal, and I think is about what would come out of it regardless. But,
what we would do is if everybody agreed on this and we got behind it as a group, then we would elect a smaller committee to write the proposal of the simplified version. You know, we're calling for a constitutional convention to end corporate personhood and take money out of politics. You know, very specific and simple. And this is just kind of to educate the people here about Article 5 and their rights under the Constitution, and then we'll take it and explain it simply to people. Yeah, that's a good point, though. People don't know their rights, and they need to.
I'm just concerned because there's a lot of uneducated people out there that probably would agree, but they just don't understand that would agree, you know? So,
Yeah, that's a good point. Simplifying the message is something that Aaron just brought up last night, too.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot more explanation and discussions with people. And trying to talk to people even when we're not here, everybody we can get a hold of, and just explain in detail so that they can understand why we're here and what we're going with. Especially with this, right? This is definitely something that would take a lot of talk to get going, and a lot of trying to recruit and get a much bigger base to definitely show that this is serious.
Yeah.
It's definitely a change that we should pursue, but we should do it with as many people as possible, because otherwise it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, you have to put pressure on the state legislatures, but you have much more availability of your state reps than you do of any federal rep, obviously.
But if we start getting some, I mean, this is something that we can do on a smaller level here. We can start producing some literature, so that when people come in the alleyway, instead of that one person meeting someone, they could be meeting someone just random that doesn't even represent the majority of us here, talking to someone. Well, if we say, hey, we got an information desk over here, grab some literature, then you can get your messages across and you're saving your breath. I mean, it's nice and all talking to people, but sometimes it gets overwhelming. Sometimes you're just like, we're about
Plus,
politics.
you give literature to people, they may not read it right then, but they might take it home and set it on the coffee table, and then one night they're bored and they'll open it. And,
That's also something we could start passing out. Also, I know a lot of the coffee shops, they would have our literature. They would promote it. Probably even a lot of the colleges, they would probably jump on board with this. So it's something we can definitely get going. It doesn't really take that much to get it going. We got, with the people here, we probably got connections enough to get some cheap print-offs, some cheap flyers. So.
we have like a local print shop is actually in this building right here next to us,
Yeah.
And it's really important too that we just, if we get behind this, that we get behind it 100% and try to get other Occupy movements on board, because one Occupy movement pushing for it alone is obviously not enough. They actually want to have a delegation. Binghamton, I think, called for everyone to send a delegate to Albany and have a big meeting of all the Occupies in New York, so I'm going to contact them
It's
about
interesting
that.
because Albany's probably getting shut down tonight by the freaking state police.
I've heard
Seriously.
I was just going to ask if we have any representatives going back and forth, or even anybody like emailing anybody. Is there any like communication between
I
all
have a
these
list
guys?
of 1,200 and some emails, and I have another list of 400 and some that are the U.S. alone.
There's
So-
a group, there is the Northeast group that posts shit together, but other than that, it's just basically direct contact. I happen to be friends with people, Facebook friends with people in like several other occupies in the state, and I think it's generally connected that way.
And when I put this out there, it's gotten really positive response. A guy from Atlanta, from the General Assembly in Atlanta, wants to bring this up to their General Assembly. That's a gigantic Occupy there.
Didn't
so
you say
like some of
Boston,
the bigger
too?
ones, New York and Boston, like some of the bigger ones have really seen this as for what it is,
Towards a way to promote our movement without having anything set in the goal type of thing.
Right. I mean, this isn't an instant fix. It took 2 years the first time. It'll take a couple years again, but getting the process going is extremely important.
And this delegation for a constitutional thing will be more of a further discussion of what we should do next. So like it's a much more specified course of what our next action should be. So, you need that.
But I kind of been saying it from the beginning. It's really the only way. Constitutional amendments are the only way to get any results. And like initially, it was just like, if we pressure Congress enough, if we get millions of people in the street. In America, we're not likely to get millions of people in the street, but we can get hundreds of thousands of people working on something. And that's all it would really take.
Well, when Dances with the Stars is over, then we might get some.
When people forget the priorities, right?
Okay, I'd like to bring up a point. Now, he said something about simplification. Now, I think we should simplify, but not too much, because we don't want people to simply agree because it's a new idea. We want people to agree because they know what the hell is going on. I mean, yes, simplify it, but we should have, it should be in the gray area, not in the, for the dumb people, or not for the, really educated people. It should be, like you've gone through high school.
Some of the myths are what we really have to work on dispelling. Like the myth that this is just going to rewrite or scrap the Constitution. A lot of Tea Partiers are afraid this would remove the Second Amendment, which I'm against removing the Second Amendment. I would never want to elect someone that ran on that. Or they're afraid it can remove the 10th Amendment, which is states' rights. And none of those things are going to happen. 38 states have to ratify something. It would take a lot of work and agreement to get anything passed, let alone something extremely radical like removing a Second Amendment, which I don't think would... that would be no good right
that
now.
would be the thing. It's like we wouldn't come out of this with anything on a social issue at all. Like none of the controversial issues could ever really even be touched by it because they couldn't agree on it. But there are certain things that the people can agree on that the government can't, and those would be the things that are intended to be addressed by this.
The important part is broad strokes. We don't want to pigeonhole our movement into a left issue or a right issue. It's got to be bigger than
Yeah.
parties.
And there's some things right now I forget who was down here the other day talking about Congress has a 13% approval rating. So, you know, like 87% of Americans can agree there needs to be a change. And that's all you need.
Those are the numbers.
My problem with the constitutional amendment thing is if you make an amendment to the Constitution, it is solidified forever.
Let me remind you that there was prohibition and then it was repealed almost immediately in 5 years, so it's not forever because an amendment can be amended.
Well, and that's the thing.
And it
there
would
are some
lead, no
amendments
matter
that we
how
should
well
get
they
away
wrote
with,
it, it would
like,
be 20 years of Supreme Court
pay
battles
increase
anyway.
Yeah.
for everybody that works in government. But wait a second. There is an amendment that has something to do with 9% pay increase or something stupid like
That's
that.
not an amendment. That's not part of the Constitution.
What is
That's the
that?
general budget from the Congress. They vote their own raises, and that's a whole separate issue. This is going to be things like, let's make it so that public money is how elections are run again. When I was born, Jimmy Carter was being elected. He was the last president to be elected by only public money. And so now we're going to have a $2 billion presidential race. You know, maybe we could spend that money a better way.
It's a lot more than that. I'm going for $1 trillion.
You think?
I see it breaking $1 trillion. I mean,
Oh.
we include the
They're
primaries.
saying $1 billion apiece. I wasn't including primaries. I was
Oh, okay.
Ooh, I didn't think about
after
primaries.
they've gotten who they're going to run, you know?
My thing is with companies, like, we're getting taxed by our government when we don't necessarily have the money to give them. Corporations have a lot of money to give them that they hoard away, and they don't pay their people and pay for their products exclusively, you know. What the corporations should be taxed as if they were people, but not have the rights of people, because they have too much money. With a lot of money, you tend to own a lot of things, and that is a problem.
And that is a problem to address, but ending corporate personhood would take away a lot of their power to begin with, so they would make less money. And then on top of that, you know, you're not going to get a whole lot of conservative people on board with that. That's usually...
make less money. They just wouldn't be able to freaking write their own regulations for each industry.
Right.
As a whole, there'd
it's
just
like-
be more diversity of corporations or something.
And the cycle
Yeah.
I see that they have less money to spend on politics. They're going to spend more money reinvesting in their own business and or trying to buy new ideas.
Yeah, so no longer will Goldman Sachs be able to make a rule like repealing the Glass-Steagall Act and then take advantage of that very revelation to make money, so that's where they make most of their money. So you're taking away their power.
And another thing is we should try to catch the government in their own act, as a lot of people say that we contradict ourselves. Well, so doesn't the government, but at a major problem. Like in China, we do not tax the people that work for us in China. We tax the people in America that work for those companies. Why don't we tax the people that work for American companies in other places?
Because they're residents of other nations, we don't have the power to tax them.
The government
We don't have that kind of
more
power.
money, but they're contradicting themselves by not taxing people that work for
Also-
major
Not that crazy. There'd be tariffs.
Yeah, well, the
Tariffs
other
on companies that produce overseas.
thing is that they don't get to take it. They don't get the benefit. We're taxed because for the roads and the schools, and to tax people who don't live here would be, you know, taxing them for services and things that they don't
That's
have.
talking world government there.
Yeah, that's not even.
Yes.
But all the governments have been starting to conglomerate.
Well, if you heard Joe, he said tariffs would be an equivalent of that. If you put a tariff on products that come from overseas to make them compete with American products, because I don't know if you know about importing, the Chinese yuan is actually pegged to the US dollar, so if the dollar drops, the yuan drops, their products will always be cheaper than ours, and there's nothing we can do about it as long as that issue is there. So a tariff would equalize that playing field. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can address these things, but get the government back on track first, then you can address all of those other things.
I mean, you also got to let the market play too as well. I mean, there is some good things about a semi-free market. As long as it's regulated and it's even and everybody's fair and it's competitive and not dominated, is the key. And a lot of stuff will correct itself. I mean, removing corporate money from politics will cause, in my mind, government to start correcting itself.
Hopefully
Yeah.
the government would start working for you to check the power of the corporations.
I keep telling everybody, I mean, the government's just a machine. I mean, it all depends on the fuel and the people driving it and where it goes and what it does. The better the fuel, the better the people driving it, the better the machine. So,
Yep, we trusted too many corrupt people with the power.
Okay, so the Occupy movement. In Wall Street, we have a lot of people that are in the Occupy movement, and they're from all different walks of life. Now here, how many, raise your hand if you're a medic.
What do you mean? Define medic.
Medic as in, you can field dress people. How many people here are a medic? You know, how many people are scientists? You know, we need like a regional.
Hey, nobody's saying we're gonna elect me or you to this. I mean, lawyers and
what I'm
doctors
saying,
are needed.
What I'm saying is, if you're occupying Wall Street and you're for the movement, then come to the places that need people like medics, and come to the places that need people like. I'm stuck here. Well, medics is probably the most important thing, but like architects, we obviously need architects here. I mean, yeah, construction workers, they're architects, but not architects. Like, you know, architects, doctors.
I'm confused. Are you talking about the overall Occupy movement now?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, dietarians. I mean, we don't eat the best here. We probably should. You know, if we plan on.
When you get enough people involved, you get that. Down in New York City, they got medical tents set up. I mean, there are doctors and.
It's pretty simple.
But that's what I'm saying.
Whether
we
it's
should
this
invite
goal,
at least one person from the occupation.
whether it's this goal or another
Well,
goal,
I'm a
saying,
CNA and I have a certified, I'm certified in CPR. And
yeah,
Yeah, we
me too.
yeah we have
lots of
people
like
here
that.
who can do stuff like that.
What I'm saying is the biggest complaint of the public right now is they don't have a central goal, a way forward. We give them that goal and they can see what we're going for, that we're not a bunch of communists or leftists like the media may portray it, then they'll get behind us and those people will come.
Yeah.
They need something to get behind.
I don't think we should wait for that, though.
What are we doing?
If I could get people here right now, I would.
I know. What you're trying to say? We should call up freaking Wall Street and say, "Hey, send us a medic."
We don't have to put on the internet. Like, hey, you know, it might be a cool idea if we had a medic because you know, what if somebody?
We had
gets
an
hurt?
open mic night that was unattended
Yeah.
tonight. I mean,
Sam,
we're not gonna get a medic.
until you got here, how many people did you know here? And
Or the beginning, really.
you didn't know anybody.
I think there's maybe a couple people I've seen around.
We
And
go
none
most
of
of
your
the day
friends
that
are
we
here,
have
right?
two people
Like,
struggling
you know?
to stay
So
awake
it's
just
the
to
same
occupy.
circumstance. Like,
Yeah.
You know.
if none of your friends are here, what do you think you're gonna?
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
speak up.
Okay, I have a suggestion.
Okay.
I think if you had a pamphlet, like he said, basically what we're about. This is for the average person. So if I just come in here, I could see what is this about? What are your main tenets? Okay. Now I need a little more explanation. So if you need more explanation, you could go for the second, the pink pamphlet or whatever. But you need a basic one that people could come up because people aren't just going to come up. They just aren't, and they're going to know who am I talking to. So what is the basic? What are your basic tenets? What are you trying to say? I like what you're saying. I'd like to see it put out with like dark print. What are we about? Da 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 da. What are our goals? Da 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 da. How do we feel? Da 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 da. And if you have any questions, see the pink pamphlet about this, the blue about that. That'd be a start. And I'd put it on the website. And you who have all the emails, send copies of what you've nailed down, because I think you've got a clear head on it, and put it in. You can't get into 1,000 extraneous points, so you're not going to get anywhere.
And it's something that also that appeals to the bumpkin proletariat, you know, I mean, I'm sorry to use that reference, but I mean, people really want to be told something like they're 5 years old, or they're really not going to, grasp it. I mean, these are all really important issues you're coming up with. I'm not trying to undermine that, you know.
Oh, you're not.
But I think really it needs to be, like I said before, something more basic and something that's more accessible. That means that people can learn more about it.
They can look at it, think about it. You know, I'm going to
without
come
actually
back.
physically having to walk down this alleyway, because a lot of people haven't even got the guts to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's intimidating if you've never been in
But
this
if you had on
situation.
either end, like the newspaper, we open it so the rain won't get it, and you take the pamphlets out, and please join us, feel free, here's our schedule. I had a hard time finding the schedule. He showed me how on the internet, but here's our schedule, and put a plastic laminate on it, and here are our basic precepts. You're welcome anytime. If it were me, I'd take it, I'd look at it, I think, I've seen this, let me look at the website. Yeah, I think I will. But I wouldn't walk right in. First of all, I'm a woman, I didn't see the women right away, I don't know what the heck I'm walking into.
Hiding.
That's why I think it's a smart, you know why I got interested? I saw one of my ex-students, Lauren Edline, all over the place promoting this, and I thought, now I taught her, I know what she stands for, let me look into this. And then my husband, well, he was into it anyway, and so we thought, well, we're down here, let's take a look. But I think this, if you want it to really be a success, you've got to start with what he said, with the literature and the pamphlets.
I think what you're saying really is we were at a certain level of inquiry that we wanted to know more about it. But the majority of people that I know that would be in agreement with it, they don't quite, they haven't got the impetus. You know what I mean? They have to be spoon-fed to an extent, and it's a shame it is that way, but you know, it is the reality that you're dealing with, you know.
Right.
So I mean, it's a suggestion. I wish I had more to offer, but really
No,
that's
no.
what I'm
No,
grappling
it's a good
with.
suggestion.
The purpose of this,
Yeah.
the purpose of this is to, if there's holes in the argument or things that need to be addressed, it's better to address them now
Yeah.
than when
Right,
someone
yeah.
walks up to you on the street and you're like,
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
And that definitely should be our next step too, as well, is going out there, getting more information outside of the LA to people, to tell them that we're still in the LA. Because now that we establish ourselves, I mean, it's been over a week now, and we're not really going anywhere anytime
Yeah.
soon. So now it's time to get people to come in.
yeah,
More
it's
people
been
here,
so
the more
quiet.
visibility we get, and the more body heat we get.
There you go.
If we do get,
Sorry.
oh, sorry.
No, you carry on.
Okay, I was going to say, if we do get some literature put together, I think there is, like, maybe the student group that might be getting started at MVCC. We might, that might be a place where we could distribute on campus and try to get, you know, some more, some of the local students
Yeah,
on
right,
board. I know there's talk about a teach-in as well.
Right.
So, and that is still in the works, but I'm going to try to.
And even the high school government classes, I think, you know, presenting all the different points of view.
I think that would be awesome.
Teachers, I mean, really, you've got a wealth of areas with the coffee houses, the colleges. It's just get a basic thing down that you can hand out, put on the web, maybe somebody write a letter to the editor, teachers, you know, and then you can begin to generate more interest and have more, you know, those who want to understand more. But otherwise, it's just, you know,
Sensory overload.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
hard to see the wood from the trees,
It is.
you know.
And we have about 300 or 400 people online that will participate, and obviously we don't have that many here, so how to translate the online to here is really difficult too, and simplification may be the best way.
It's
Yeah.
a tough transition to go from sitting on your couch to coming down to
And you can
an alley
understand.
in
You
Utica.
can
I
understand
think
why
they're
it's
still
exciting.
scared and
Yeah.
apathetic.
This is kind of important. We do not have Julie here, and we are not writing down the bulletins.
She's recording.
I'm
it.
recording this whole
Oh,
thing.
that's okay.
Camera's on ya.
They're a little smaller than they used to be.
Okay, what's the next order of business?
I think that was really about it for tonight.
I think that's a lot.
Right.
That's quite a lot of ground covered.
Even if you
did
had
you-
a suggestion box, or you started putting your main ideas down. Now, how can we organize it? A few of you start organizing it. What can we do? And I'd put, what are we about in bold letters, and then the paragraph under it.
And we kind of talked about this last night, as far as the mission statement, blah blah blah, and simplifying the website. But did you look into the city banking thing at all?
I haven't. It's really hard to find. I'm gonna have to call the comptroller's office.
Yeah, I freaking fell asleep in the afternoon on Friday and missed it. But yeah, like I tried to find it online and I couldn't. But I was doing it from my phone and that's a pain in the ass.
I went through the whole budget and can't find it, and through the entire comptroller's website and so on. You weren't here last night, but one of the other things we had talked about as a local action is trying to get the city of Utica to divest from Bank of America, which is where we believe they bank. We're still doing research. But from whatever big bank down to a local credit union or bank to bring that money back
Yeah.
to the community.
Yeah.
And so that's the local action we want to focus
Because
on.
a local action would give us some press again, and kind of protect our ability to stay here. Because at the point where we're actually threatening the city with something or trying to enact change with the city, then if they turn around and like rescind our like grace period here, it looks bad for them.
Yeah.
And it also gives us something that if they do run us out of here, we can continue as an organization regardless of actually
Yeah.
being here.
Oh, there's a point that I would like to make, and one of them is this isn't a courtroom. This is GA, and how often do we get these many people at GA? Last night's GA was ridiculously disappointing to me. And I've been here for how many days, and I haven't seen that small of a GA. And we have people here, including new people. I think if we're going to press on a point, we might as well finish what we were saying. Like, if we want to organize a pamphlet, we're being videotaped. Let's throw shit at the video camera. You know, like in an order.
Not physically.
But yeah.
Considering I'm holding it.
Well, how do we want it to start? How do we want it to...
We talked about YouTube videos and things like that to help explain this better. The problem is there's like 2 of us who are not occupying in order to do this stuff at home.
Yeah.
And so how do we get more people? You know, Sean's going to come and help right now, and some other people are, because when they can't be here, then they can be doing that stuff. It's the shortness of numbers that's making that hard.
Another week I'm gone and I can support more in an online role.
It is as well.
Another week I'm not going to be down here 6 times a week.
Well, here's an idea. As far as like pamphlets are concerned, maybe I could write some stuff out in my own basic, you know, way, and like bring it to you. You could have a look at it, and if you think it's any good, then you can publish
Use what
that
you can of it.
periodically even. You know, I mean, I don't know about YouTube videos and things like that. Just a piece of paper. I'm talking, you know. But
Yeah.
I mean, if that would help, I would gladly do it.
Yeah, that would definitely help.
I like what he says about periodically. Maybe we should throw out something really tasty like this, and then, you know, a couple days from then, throw out another thing that's like, hey, this is another thing we're about, and then draw people in. It's like, you want to learn more? Come down, you know.
And that's slowly what the blog has been growing into.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, don't get me wrong, I think the blog's it's great as it stands right now, but I mean, you know, there's little tweaks you can always make, you know.
Always, yeah.
So, sure.
Do you check email regularly?
Yeah, we have Occupy Utica at Gmail is our...
So that's how he could establish a contact.
Yep,
Yeah,
actually I think 5 or 6 of us have access to that.
Yeah, anybody who wants it, these are good. Haven't been on it.
So are we going to vote on the Constitution thing today, or do you think it's something you just wanted to bring up for discussion?
Yeah, bring it up for discussion, because if we vote on it with this few number of people, it'd be
Yeah.
like the 10 of us would be guiding the entire organization without consensus.
Yeah.
So
Well,
we're going to pop this up on YouTube and the blog and then see what we can do with that.
I have one quick statement to make, and then I will shut my mouth for the rest of the, well, not the rest of the night, but the rest of the GA. How much mail do we get from politicians in the Occupy Utica mailbox?
None.
None at all, really. Okay,
I
well,
don't get much mail from anybody.
Yeah, we get mostly other Occupy groups.
what I think
Yeah.
what we should do, because I think this would be extremely interesting, is to invite politicians to throw their ideas into the email and then see how uniform or ununiform all of their ideas are. Because that's what we are, is we're not a uniformed idea, we're a bunch of ideas that we think should definitely happen.
Any politicians that wanted to do that, they would be more than welcome, but I don't know if we should go seeking
And like you said,
endorsement.
and
for
take
that.
polls and
Yeah.
see which sides they're from, and
Because the vote is
parties.
definitely that Richard Hanna, if he wants to speak, it was 77 to 12, so if he wants to speak, then people voted to let him speak, and having Richard Hanna here would draw in 100 people, maybe more.
Speaking
Well,
of
another thing.
politicians, we actually had one stop by today. It was Palmieri. Stopped by, dropped off some water, had this picture and face on it. But
his campaign water.
but he did stop by, and he said he just keep it up and all that, and he kind of ran away right afterwards. Kind of just quick drop off. Then we had somebody else, and I wish I could remember his name, but when it comes to names, I'm like a goldfish. He dropped some coffee off, stuff like that, and he's from the Democratic Working Party, I think, here in Utica. And he stayed for a little bit and talked with us, and he just told us, and they're interested, and he's trying to convince people to come down here more often, including Palmieri, just to give us a talk to. And I told them that if people want to speak, we can definitely put it up for him. I mean, we have to make it blatantly clear that it's not a campaign stock. A lot of people are running for mayor.
Problem because when he first got here, the initial thing he said was, "I'm campaigning."
Right. And people, I mean, I'm not saying I'm running for office, but to treat this, I mean, I don't want this to be a stump. I want this to be a discussion.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I think we can definitely do that for you. Yeah.
Just the nature.
We can't get away from that. I mean, that's what politicians do. I mean, every couple of years they got a campaign.
When we give him a platform, he can't be campaigning. But if he wanders in, he's the same as somebody handing his Bible.
Absolutely.
You know?
We won't go on the stage a campaign, but we can definitely have him talk to us. But same thing, somebody coming in with saying I'm for this cause, can you guys help us out? I'm like, well, the individuals can, the group can't. Type thing.
This is the main reason that I wanted to invite politicians to send us emails, is because we want to see which party they're coming from. And if we have a lot more of one party than the other, we need to start steering around the obstacles. Because if we crash into one party, then people are going to categorize us as that party.
That's why we haven't sought any endorsements from politicians.
Yeah, we've stayed away from them
And
altogether.
I think we're all really independent here. I don't think that if there is an attempt at co-option and we're unable to fend that off, that we would just fall apart. We wouldn't end up being.
We kind of got lucky that all the local unions were lazy. Like they're all like, yeah, it's a good idea, and we're never going to show up again. So it's all good.
That's why I think it's important to focus on your main ideas and not get off on a million tangents.
These pamphlets, every time we see a police officer that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe not that particular one, because that's not really an official statement yet.
It's a thin line to walk.
Yeah, that's a specific proposal
If
as
you look on
opposed
the
to
back,
a.
yeah, it says specifically that it's not.
You can